Hi, I'm Olivia.
And I'm Amy.
And this is a Girls in Marketing podcast. Every week, we release a new episode that you won't want to miss. Our guests are industry experts with amazing experiences, so you'll always come away with new nuggets of wisdom. From educational and inspiring episodes covering the latest in digital marketing to casual and fun chats with the Girls in Marketing team, unpacking marketing myths and trends, we've got it all.
Here at Girls in Marketing, we're all about empowering and supporting women to be the best marketers they can be through our online learning platform and community. Check out our resources and membership to get involved, as we'd love to welcome you to our inner circle.
Right, let's dive into an episode together. Hello and welcome back to the Girls in Marketing podcast. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Jodie Cruttenden. Jodie is the Global Brand Ambassador Manager for the GelBottle, which is a leading brand in the nail care industry. Taking the untraditional route by leaving college and going straight into the world of work, Jodie has built a marketing career in the beauty and fashion industry. And we know that many of you listeners are interested in pursuing a marketing career in this area. So we thought that it was fitting to bring Jodie onto the podcast. Plus, she's previously worked in marketing for huge brands like Rush Hair and Summers, building up a wealth of knowledge in her area of expertise. Welcome to the studio, Jodie. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to talk a little bit about your career, how you became the Global Brand Ambassador Manager for the GelBottle.
Okay, so I left college and I got a job as a sales exec for a company that sold franking machines. It's pretty boring, can't really pick it up anymore. And then whilst I was there for 2.5 years, and I actually was offered a marketing exec role. So my boss kindly paid for me to do a course with the Oxford College of Marketing, and I studied for the Chartered Institute of Marketing foundation degree, which I passed. And then from there, obviously, I really loved what I had learned and everything I was kind of applying what I'd learned to the business. So I left and I got a job as a marketing exec at Rush Hair and Beauty, and I was there for about 1.5 years. So that was really great. I did lots of local marketing, my first taste of managing a press agency and doing lots of fun things like that. And then I left there and I joined Ann Summers, where I was for 3.5 years, and I started there as a marketing exec again. So doing lots of local marketing, like students events as well. And then I was promoted to a senior brand exec. So this is where it got really fun. So they brought on a CMO who said, we don't do any influencer marketing. And she offered me the opportunity to kind of run it, which was great. So we started an always on influencer program. And I managed the social agency and the press agency as well. So my 3.5 years there were great. And then I left there and I was at Capital Hair and Beauty for a little bit. But to be honest, it wasn't for me, and that's fine. I think it's sometimes good to admit, defeat sometimes. And after being somewhere for 3.5 years, it was quite normal that someone might have not worked out. So thankfully, I came across the GelBottle, which I'd always heard of. Obviously, it's on everyone's nails. And I started as a senior marketing exec there and was doing lots of launches and promotions, things like that. And then the role of the Global Brand Ambassador Manager came up and I saw it and I just was like, that role is for me. I completely missed doing kind of influencer marketing and things like that. So I applied and got it in. 1.5 years later, here I am. So yeah, that's how I got the role.
Yeah. So you kind of left college then, went straight into the world of work. You kind of took that untraditional route, which I think is quite relatable for a lot of people listening, for a lot of our community.
Yeah.
I speak to so many people in our community that didn't really go to university or didn't have that traditional route. How did you find going from, school, college, straight into the world of work?
Yeah. So, to be honest, it was a little bit of a transition, obviously going from college, and obviously there was some sort of structure, but you're not there 9 to 5 and having appraisals or getting paid. So all these different things. And I feel actually in college and school, you don't really get taught about what it's like to get your first job. So it took a little bit of adjustment, but to be honest, it actually made me mature quite quickly. So I remember lots of people started joining my first company and they were a lot younger. They were like, you seem so serious and mature. And I was still 18 at the time, but I'd obviously, working with sales managers and trying to hit targets, it kind of just matures you a little bit quicker. So yeah, I don't regret not going to uni. I think it was never for me. I have a lot of friends who do go to uni and they've absolutely smashed it. But for me, I've just always wanted to get a job, work my way up the career ladder and just earn money as well. So for me, it was the best fit.
Yeah. And as well, I think something a little bit untraditional again is that you kind of had that sales role and then went into marketing. I think a lot of people have that kind of transition sometimes if they're interested in marketing as a career.
Yeah.
What kind of piqued your interest within marketing and what kind of made you stay in that as a career?
So I think for me, obviously, when I was doing the sales role, and there was not really any marketing function at the business. So when my boss at the time obviously offered me, would you kind of like to learn marketing? I was like, of course, I think I'm just quite open to, making changes, whether it's personal, whatever. So I, grabbed the opportunity and I don't regret it at all. I think for me, I obviously loved everything I learned in the course, and I just knew that I wasn't able to push myself further because it was like a local B2B business in my local town. So I was like, in order to kind of grow and learn more, I'd need to move on to another company and find out where my passions lie. So I'm quite lucky in the sense that I've kind of been able to do every type of marketing, whether it's email marketing, like paid marketing, so I now know what my favorite bits of it are.
Mm-hmm. What are your favorite bits?
I would definitely say press and influencer are my definite favorite bits.
Yeah. I think influencer as well and the way it's kind of changed. I do want to cover this later when talking about the GelBottle. I think it's really interesting how the kind of creator economy has changed to kind of what it used to be. But I wanted to dive in and talk about your role at Ann Summers, because I know when we've had our previous conversation before, I was just so intrigued. I think just that whole movement, the kind of sex positive movement and everything. And I know that you said you were kind of at the start of that or just before that happening in regards to working in marketing. So I think it'd be good for you to talk a little bit more about your role in kind of marketing and brand at Ann Summers, what that was about, what you did on day to day and what your kind of role in what you kind of did.
So when I was a marketing exec, we were doing a lot of local marketing, because obviously we had over 100 stores at the time. I think it might have been 120, can't quite remember, but over 100 stores, obviously all across the UK, and lots of them were kind of moving around, or we were opening new stores. So a lot of the local marketing was around that, or kind of driving footfall, anything where a store like their average transaction value had dropped. We would obviously do local marketing, whether it's hosting an event or, pushing on email, doing like a social story saying, come down today and there's goodie bags, X, Y, and Z. And then obviously the student events, that was super fun as well. So I do remember a few times when we planned events, we were reaching out to a lot of brands and they were like, absolutely no. And it was because everyone was just, I don't know what it was, to be honest. I think everyone had this perception of Ann Summers just being really cheap and stuff. And to be honest, I was there for 3.5 years. The quality of the product has, got a lot better, and the marketing. And I think it was just due, the branding kind of had a revamp as well. So I think with that, and then just kind of pushing the boundaries, everyone's just kind of accepted it, what Ann Summers is about. And now I remember before I left, our inbox was just outdated with requests all the time, but please can we work with you? It was crazy. So it was cool to work, for them. Obviously seeing how it transitioned from a brand, everyone was oh no, to oh my God, we need to be wearing Ann Summers, working with them. It was actually really nice.
Yeah. And I think that transition has kind of been across almost society as well.
Yeah.
So obviously that's happened for Ann Summers, but equally for many other brands, and you've kind of seen that happen. How did you kind of find marketing the kind of taboo topic of sex when you were there?
So obviously on the topic of sex, we came up with a pleasure positivity project. And we decided that the face of this project would be Megan Barton Hansen. Obviously, she'd recently come out of Love Island. She was very sex positive, and we also knew she features in the press a lot, so it was a win-win for us. So this whole project was about how many orgasms women actually miss out on a year, and it was a staggering stat, which the press obviously were loving because they love a stat. And then it just kind of went from there. So yeah, it was really cool to work on that project and just see the perception changing, and people just actually talking about sex, and it's such a normal thing, so it should just be spoken about. But all the ambassadors we worked with and any celebrities, we've always kind of ensured that they were open about those topics as well. For example, Maura. So again, it's kind of just pushing the brand with the right ambassadors, and now it's just the norm, which is great.
So you obviously led that kind of like influencer program. What did that entail?
So the Always On program, as I mentioned, obviously influencer marketing didn't exist. So it was really, really cool to be able to work on that. It did take a lot of kind of education internally, just because with influencer marketing, yes, you can provide like trackable links, etc. But it is more of like a brand building piece. They're not, you're not going to see £10,000 the next day after a post has gone live. That's not how it works. So it was a lot of like education internally, just to kind of say like, this is what we're doing, who we'll be working with, why, etc. Because obviously with influence marketing, you can tap into their audiences, and those audience may have not seen or anything, wanted anything to do with Ann Summers previously. So we always made sure the ambassadors were kind of like people that had positive, perceptions. Their audience obviously super engaged and things like that. And obviously we make sure if they're like comfortable to promote the products. Obviously if they're not, then we wouldn't work with them. But we also like to have with the program kind of like a 3-month retainer, so that the posts are a couple times a month for like 3 months, so that it's more genuine. Because what I found before I got into influencer marketing is you see a post and they're like, this is the best thing ever. And then you never see that again. And it's just not genuine. So we wanted to make sure that to make it genuine, we obviously, scheduled a couple of posts a month and made it like a long-standing partnership. And then you invite them to like events, and it just becomes like more than just the Always On program. It's kind of like you have them as like your girl gang type of thing. So it was really cool to work on that.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of brands kind of leaning into that model as well. Yeah, because I think ultimately people are so switched on now, consumers, and just genuinely everyone is so switched on to that element of influencer marketing. Back in the day, maybe 2013, 2014, it could have been one post and that's it. But now I think it's so different. The whole landscape is completely different. Before we kind of move on and talk about like the GelBottle and your role there, I want to know, what was your favourite campaign that you worked on at Ann Summers?
That is such a hard question. There were so many. I think for me, it was definitely the first one we did with Maura Higgins. So that was called Be More Maura. And obviously she was loved on Love Island. She's so nice. She photographed amazingly. She was actually just really down to earth as well. And I think it was a really good move that my CMO kind of decided to get her on board, because the press love her. So anything she does, they weave Ann Summers into it. So from a press point of view, obviously we weren't paying for that. It was great. But yeah, it was a really good campaign, because obviously it was like the audience received it really well. It drove a lot of revenue. It was good. And she's like a fun character. So she's still like an ambassador today. So it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah. No, that's so nice. And I think that ultimately having those long-term partnerships is where it's at, isn't it, really? Which leads me quite nicely onto your role now, which is obviously Global Brand Ambassador Manager for the GelBottle. A bit of a mouthful, but
100%.
It is what it says on the tin. So you kind of look after 32 brand ambassadors.
Yeah.
So talk about that, like what is that role? Because I think for a lot of people, so this is classed as a marketing role, and it's very much sits within that kind of function, but it isn't got that typical name. So I think it'd be interesting for you to kind of talk a little bit about that, what your role entails, what you kind of look after in regards to the GelBottle and kind of brand ambassadors.
Yeah. So day to day, it's kind of, obviously there's like 32 of them at the moment, obviously UK based. So it's just every day, just making sure I respond to them. Obviously got lots of queries coming in like on WhatsApp or email. So it's just obviously as their kind of manager, just obviously managing them. And then working with our internal teams to see like what promotions and launches are coming up. And then making sure that that's all accounted for, like all the product goes out on time to the ambassadors, that they're all briefed, allowing them kind of like 2 weeks, because obviously they are full-time nail techs as well. So have to take that into consideration. And then obviously I will like review the content, approve it, schedule posting times. I kind of will choose the dates as well. I kind of let them test and learn and let them push back on like what times are best for them. And then obviously kind of we'll look at the affiliate links that they've obviously put out on their stories to kind of see like how it's doing. And then obviously we'll ask them for their insights and obviously kind of wrap that up to reports. So that's kind of like day to day. Obviously not every day is like the same, because I'm currently looking after our press agency as well and working on future influencer programs. So yeah, it's super fun day to day. But with the brand ambassadors, obviously it's like not an influencer program. which I'll get onto. But the brand ambassadors, they basically represent the GelBottle. Their audience are mostly B2B, so that's kind of like nail techs. But they also are followed by, people like you and me who are just looking for like inspiration for their next design. So they are pushing the product to obviously sell, but it can only be bought by the nail techs because we are a professional only gel polish brand. So it's kind of different in that way. So obviously some of the audience might try and buy, but they obviously cannot. So that's why we want to get into an influencer program, but that's how it's kind of different.
Yeah, I really like the kind of longevity of the brand ambassador program. I think that, even before kind of knowing you and having these conversations with you, I was aware that the GelBottle had brand ambassadors simply because I don't know if I have one that's close to me or something like that, but I feel like more or less every nail tech uses it.
Yeah.
And I think that when you go and it's a good it's a good product to use. So when your nail tech's using it, you're like, okay, yeah, great, fine. And I think potentially the brand ambassadors have had like a big part in that, really.
Yeah.
Because you see it, and some of these brand ambassadors or anyone who posts about it, they kind of tag the GelBottle, and it's like they get hundreds, thousands of likes potentially. And so I was aware before of the program, which is always good. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the kind of future of the scheme. So obviously you've spoken about the fact that you currently have the brand ambassadors, which is amazing. But what is the future? Maybe working with more influencers, like what is the plans?
So the future for the brand ambassador scheme is just to kind of make sure that it's running the best way it possibly can. So for example, just kind of onboarding any tools internally that are going to help kind of amplify the program, such as like a content hub or like a different affiliate program, things like that. And then once that's kind of all revamped internally, I then plan to roll it out globally, because we do have over 20 distributors around the world, which obviously sell GelBottle. And they've all kind of got brand ambassadors as well. So it's just kind of rolling all the changes we're going to make for the UK out globally. And then for the future, for the GelBottle, obviously we want to introduce like an influencer program. So this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So the GelBottle, as I've mentioned, is a B2B brand. You can only buy it if you're a professional nail tech. We have like over 500 colours, which is great. But obviously, if you're not professional, then you cannot buy it. So we also have a sister brand called Peachy, which is like B2C, which you can buy on ASOS or you can buy off that website. So the influencer program will work with maybe like content, like nail content creators for the GelBottle, where their audience may be B2B, but it will also work with, for example, influencers or celebrities, send them to get their nails done. Obviously, they post about it, and their following, so like the B2Cs, will see it and hopefully ask a nail tech to be like, oh my goodness, have you got the shade Chili, for example, which kind of pushes a nail tech to get these shades in. Yeah. And then with Peachy to obviously have like an influencer program for that, which is obviously B2C, nail polish and like Peachy skin, things like that. So again, that'll be working with actual influencers, but the opportunities are endless. We also have our salon in Manchester called Create & Co, which we hope to kind of utilise kind of getting influencers there and things like that. So it's really exciting to be a part of.
Yeah, that's so interesting as well, because with it being a B2B brand, I think a lot of people don't really think, because we've spoken about before influence marketing from a kind of consumer perspective, but it's really interesting, the kind of B2B side. How do you kind of find that, like, in terms of results and kind of measuring results and understanding them? Is it more from a brand awareness perspective?
Yeah, I definitely think for the influencer program, it will be like from a brand awareness perspective. I think also we can probably see like product uplift, for example, the shade names. Yeah. If we work with a big influencer and they're promoting, I don't know, the shade Daisy, for example, and then you can see if there's been a product uplift and that in terms of sales. But I think with the brand ambassador scheme, because that will all, be tracked through like the affiliate program, I want to introduce like maybe discount codes, things like that. That'll be, easier to track. I think anything you do, influencer marketing especially, you definitely have to be like tracking. Otherwise, a brand could just be paying and seeing no return on investment, which is crazy. Yeah. But it's really exciting to kind of just revamp it and just improve the ways of working and just seeing where we can take it. Because to be honest, on our Instagram alone, we have over 700,000 followers, and to not we're currently not tapping into that kind of B2C audience, because it is a B2B business, but it is followed by people like, ourselves, just looking for inspiration. So it is going to be very exciting to kick that off.
Yeah, it's so interesting as well, the kind of whole setup of the B2B and B2C side of things. And so in general then, with the GelBottle in particular, how do you think, how does it work with obviously the influencer brand ambassadors? How does kind of everything work in conjunction with like the whole marketing strategy and like social media? How does that kind of all work together?
So when we have, for example, like an upcoming launch or a promotion, obviously the brand ambassadors will be briefed. I make sure that the content is all in on time, and I usually schedule it. So say if a promotion is running for a week, we will schedule the brand ambassadors content to kind of go live throughout that week so that customers will constantly be reminded. We then obviously repurpose it onto social. So anyone, you can't assume that they all follow all the ambassadors and our social media. So they hopefully will see the content at some point, but that's where our social comes in. It kind of reposts the brand ambassadors to give them a bit of a platform as well, which is great. And then also just kind of educate and inspires our audience as well, which is also a dream.
Yeah. And I think it is quite like, it's a huge brand in general, the GelBottle, and it is something that, it's difficult because I think the B2B market is something that people, when it comes to influence marketing, get quite scared about. And I think leaning into that new idea of like long-term partnerships, that kind of brand ambassador, like scheme, stuff like that, I think that really works. What kind of success has kind of the GelBottle seen from doing that from like a B2B perspective?
So definitely in terms of like the brand ambassador scheme, every time we repost, the social team told me they get great engagement on those posts. So we know that they like to see kind of a mix of media, because our feed is filled with like a lot of kind of like tutorials or just like launch images, etc. But it is nice to kind of fill in with the brand ambassadors images as well, or their reels, because reels perform really well. And obviously TikTok, we've recently started using that. So whenever we kind of repurpose the BA's content onto TikTok again, it does really well. So from an engagement point of view, the social team love it.
Yeah.
Which is great for me.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. So then in terms of like future plans, so you've obviously talked about the fact that you want to just really refine what you're doing. What is the kind of aim for these future plans? What do you hope to do with the new influencer stuff and the brand ambassador schemes?
What a question. I think for me, just with the brand ambassadors, I'm really OCD, so just like refining it to how I want it. And that is just due to my previous experience. And just kind of, again, rolling it out globally. So I know that like all the distributors and all their brand ambassadors like have everything they need, and all the content is like, tip top. And for me, it just would be gradually onboarding more brand ambassadors as well. And even brand ambassadors with like a smaller amount of following. Like for me, it's all about growing them. And obviously I'm so here for that. So I think that's really exciting with the brand ambassador program. And then I just think with the influencer program, obviously it doesn't exist yet, but to just have the kind of chance to work on it and just see like how big it can go, whether we're working with like a mix of celebrities or influencers or kind of, I don't know, but it's really exciting just to kind of have this opportunity just to make it better.
Yeah. And in terms of like trends and going forward with the GelBottle and everything you guys are doing, what would you say you're kind of doing as a marketer and kind of working in your role to stay ahead of like trends and kind of like innovating in regards to like marketing strategy and stuff like that?
So we have a wonderful MPD team who work with our founder, Daisy Kalnina, and we have some in-house nail techs as well. And we also have an insights team. So they all work together to see, years ahead, to literally see like what the trends are going to be, like, whether it's color trends or like nail trends or just like literally any trend. So they just, are covered. And then from there, they kind of decide like what to bring out. And obviously being the GelBottle, it's kind of, it's one of the biggest professional only gel brands. So we need to set these trends and bring things to market that don't exist or do exist, but better and have like the TGB spin on it. So our insights team are working super hard on kind of preparing for like years to come. And I think that department is just invaluable because I think it's better to have these actual insights of what people are saying, what they want, and what these trends are to actually bring out things that the customers want.
Yeah. And I think it's always nice to kind of see, like, as well with like seasonalities. So, new colours or new things in accordance to like seasonalities and stuff like that. And what's nice is kind of listening to customers, and from a B2B perspective as well. It's always really interesting, I think, to kind of understand that B2B market, which I think you guys have done really well. And a lot of people don't really tap into that too much, because people hear influencer, they hear B2B, and they get quite kind of scared. But I think it's really nice to hear the success that GelBottle have had, and considering that, you're going to continue it and evolve it and make it even better is kind of nice to hear. And hopefully will be nice for people listening, potentially, if they're in that kind of B2B space. If they're in that B2B space, to kind of understand, okay, it can work. And it, it's going to be successful. It's just about the effort and the time and everything that you've got to put into it, which I'm sure it is kind of a lot, because that is your job entirely, is to look after that. So what's your favourite, would you say is your favourite part of your job at the moment?
Favourite part of my job? I mean, at the moment, I would probably just say when I get the content in from the brand ambassadors and approving it and kind of know when it's going to go live, because obviously they're all so talented. And no one else will see the content, because I'm currently a team of one. So when I know it's going live, and then everyone was like, oh my God, did you see so-and-so's post? And I'm like, yep, it's amazing. Like, for me, I'm super proud of the content they produce. And again, when it's repurposed onto our like TGB social and it does really well, I always, make sure I comment on it, share it, because I'm super proud of them. So I think that's probably the most favorite part. And obviously I work with our press agency as well, so securing some amazing coverage. We've recently had like Sheer Luxe and Grazia. So again, it's kind of just being really excited about that. And I think to work, you've got to be passionate about what you do, right? So I think that's a good indication that this role is right for me, because I get so happy when I see these things. So.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of building a career in kind of like the beauty, fashion kind of space, because I know that obviously you had your role with Rush, and then you've also had the role with Ann Summers, and then now the GelBottle. They're all kind of quite different, but there's a lot of our audience who are really interested in that kind of space, getting into that space. Do you have any kind of advice for people if they do want to? Because I think it'd be really nice to kind of touch on that.
So I think definitely, it sounds crazy, but actually if you just follow all the brands that you really like, on Instagram, on TikTok, LinkedIn's literally the one at the moment. I'm obsessed with that platform. But just like follow all the brands you're really into, because you kind of get a vibe of like what they post, their tone of voice, things like that. And then what I did is I just connect with all the people, like the marketing managers, etc., at these brands. So they, accept you, but they probably don't know your name. But you're connected, because then it's a good like way in. You can just message them. Is there any jobs going? I always just think, you don't ask, you don't get. So that's always a good one. I think also not just looking at their social media, but looking at their websites, things like that, because obviously marketing, if you are like new to the industry, you may not know what kind of route you want to go down. So I used to literally love like email marketing, things like that. So subscribe to their emails as well, just so you can be like fully immersed in their brand. And then if there's obviously a role, definitely apply for it. But I think it's better to know about all the brand and what they do, because it sets you up for the interview to actually makes you sound like you really know like all about the brand, which I know like founders, etc. love. So I think it sounds a bit weird, but just kind of stalk them on all their platforms just to really get a feel for what they do. And then you can kind of see maybe what route you want to go down. But I think if you're starting out, just take any like marketing exec job, and then you'll get the opportunity to do different types of marketing and find out what you really love. Yeah.
And I think what's nice is as well, just being able to follow these people. I always say LinkedIn makes the world feel like a really small place.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, because if you think about like these huge brands and all that, and it's just like, you can connect with, marketing managers or whatever from there. And that's great advice, because I think a lot of people get quite scared to do that sort of thing, to put themselves out there and that sort of thing. But I think beauty and fashion in particular is quite a kind of competitive space. So I think sometimes it's about understanding, okay, how do I kind of weave myself into this? And I think, connecting with people and stuff is a really good idea, definitely. But thank you so much for coming in today. It's been
thank
so
you for having me.
having a chat. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the Girls in Marketing podcast. We love hearing from you, so if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a review to let us know your thoughts, and make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button to be the first to hear when our new episodes release. Don't forget, if you want to get involved with Girls in Marketing, check out our membership to join our incredible community of marketers. Think marketing resources, courses, webinars, and more. Find out more on our website or drop us a message on any of our social channels at Girls in Marketing. That's all from us today, so have a wonderful week and we'll see you